McCarthy. Is there anybody here from OccupyLSX? Okay, hiya. Just say thank you for inviting me. Really pleased to have the invitation.
What's me personally?
Well, Occupy.
How did I going to stop you?
Okay, thank you. Subject of today's talk is the prostitute state, how political lobbying screws 99%. First of all, before I get started, I want to ask a few questions. How many people here have a bank account? Okay. How many people here have a bank account? How many people here want to fund the nuclear lobby? Nobody. How many people here have an electricity account with EDF Energy?
How many people what?
Have an electricity account with EDF Energy. Okay. If you have an electricity account with any of the major 4 electricity companies in the UK, you are funding the nuclear lobby, because your money is used to fund lobbyists. If you've got a mainstream bank account, you're funding the banking lobby. If you buy, anybody shop at Tesco's? No? Morrison's? Asda? Sainsbury's? Okay, they all have parliamentary lobbyists as well. So if you buy from them, you are funding the lobbying industry. So just trying to bring across to how we are linked through lobbying, through maintaining the 1% stake. I want to, the theory of my talk is I spent 12 years in politics. I was a member of Local Democrats. I was a local councillor in Southwark. I was on the board of the party for 7 years, and I was deputy chair of the party for 2 years. And I actually came across the political lobbying system so often, like 100 miles per hour at a concrete wall, that eventually, after I'll tell you my experiences, I actually decided it actually was pointless being in the political system. Because in some ways, no matter who you vote for, the political lobbying party is in power. And hopefully through this conversation I want to explain how that works in the real world. But when I started looking at the OccupyLSX and then thinking about my experience in lobbying and thinking about the 1%, 99%, I decided, it came to me that it's not just the political lobbying system that helps the 1% accumulate their wealth, but actually we are in a prostitute state in 3 ways. First of all, the 1%, but through the political lobbying companies and other methods I'll go through, buy our political elites. Secondly, the 1% own the vast majority of our press, the media, and through that they control the political system and even what we think and what we vote for. And thirdly, which may be kind of unusual, is the tax haven system. I was absolutely amazed at, in my experience at the top level Democrats, how much tax havens are linked with all the major parties and what that issue means. I'll go into it. So those are 3 themes of how we think our state, that we think we live in a democracy, is actually prostituted through selling our state through corporations and the 1%, through political lobbying, through the media, and through tax haven corruption. So just before I go into explain how political lobbying works, I just tell you about my experiences firsthand. I joined the Local Democrats in '92 general election. I'm an environmentalist, I'm passionate about the environment, I want to save the planet. The Local Democrats seemed the best of the 3 major parties, so I joined the Local Democrats. Very excited first year, all these policies about liberalism and freedom and the written constitution, elected upper chamber and anti-nuclear power and blah blah blah. I was really excited. I was like a duck in water. And around 2 years into being a member of the party, between 2 years I became elected as a councillor in Southwark. And I got into politics because I spent time with the Yanomami Indians. Can you all hear me, by the way? Okay, so I don't need to use a microphone. I got involved in politics in 1992 because I spent some time with the Yanomami Indians and saw the destruction of the rainforest firsthand and the genocide that is still going on. That started when Columbus arrived in the New World. And I joined Survival International, which is an international organisation for Indigenous peoples. And how they work is they ask their members to write letters to dictators or governments that are destroying Indigenous people's land, or they're poisoning their waters or whatever, taking away their rights or killing them. And I got a letter from Survival International asking me to write to the president of Indonesia, Suharto, protesting against Rio Tinto Zinc's destruction of the Amangme tribe's ancestral land. They lived around this huge mountain in the forest in Indonesia, and at the top of this forest top of the centre of their tribal land was a mountain, and they believed that when they died they went to heaven, but their heaven was at the top of this mountain. And Rio Tinto Zinc was going in and just taking the entire mountain off as a mining corporation. And I just remembered, actually, something in the back of my mind rang a bell. I was saying Rio Tinto Zinc, Rio Tinto Zinc, Rio Tinto Zinc. I looked in and looked it up, and I remember the connection. Lord Richard Home, who was Paddy Ashdown's head of the general election campaign, was a director of Rio Tinto Zinc for external affairs. I didn't know at the time, but this was my first experience of political lobbying. Historically, Rio Tinto Zinc, in most countries that it operates, I didn't know this, try and have a director from every single one of the major political parties. And seemingly in Britain, that included the Liberal Democrats. And Lord Home was a Liberal on the board of Rio Tinto Zinc. So I thought, well, I'd be a complete hypocrite if I wrote to President Suharto when in my own political party that issue was there. Now remember, mix that up. Now remember, the Liberal Democrats in that general election in '92 were standing on the platform of anti-nuclear power, pro-human rights, protecting the environment. Richard Home was in charge of that general election campaign, while simultaneously being the External Affairs Director of Rio Tinto Zinc, which was condemned by the United Nations for human rights abuses, condemned by NGOs across the planet for its environmental destruction, and is the largest private nuclear supplier of uranium in the world. So here you had one person in charge of the Liberal Democratic election campaign having two different hats completely contradictory to each other. So I thought, well, I've got to do something about that. So I wrote to Paddy Ashdown, top lady, and saying, you know, this is unacceptable. We need to do something about it.
Oh, sorry for interrupting you. I'm here in the Tent University working group. And I was wondering, can everybody here, now that you're more people, do you want me to put on the PA, turn on the PA, things better? Yeah? How do you feel about that?
Just fine.
Oh,
So possibly move back to this top. There's a light right behind you, and it just cuts.
Okay, no problem. So I decided I need to write to Paddy Ashdown. So I spoke to him saying we can't have the director doing both sides. Paddy Ashdown wrote back, copying a letter from Richard Home saying,